This video will be the fourth in a series about making and using a DIY chainsaw mill jig. Before we can jump right into the milling, there's a lot that goes into basic log handling and preparation in this process. I've been refining it over the last couple of years, and previous videos have dealt with making and using the jig itself, making a rail clamping system that doesn't put screw holes into your wood, and a super simple counterbalance system that really helps to stabilize the jig. But today's video is going to be about getting a log ready so that it's suitable for use with this type of jig in the first place. And of course, I'll also try to throw in lots of procedural tips that, all added up, will help improve the overall efficiency of the process. And we start with some log 101. You've acquired an 8'6" log that's about 14 to 16 inches diameter. And now you have the problem of, we want to get it from here to up there so that we can work on it more easily. Baby steps first. It is possible to roll a log of this size with one person if you're reasonably strong. If you push on one side, it will tend to move in an arc, but that takes a long time. So there's a better way. What I mean is that we're going to use a fulcrum. Find a piece of firewood that's round on the top, remove the bark so that it has less friction, and preferably it has a flat bottom. Now that these logs are both out in the open and away from any brush so that we don't trip, we can start by getting the bark off of them, and then we'll choose where to put our first flat spot on the log. Today's logs are both around the same size, and they're maple, and they've been painted on the ends just to lock in moisture. You don't want them to dry out. As a matter of fact, the fresher the better, because if they're fresh, like in the springtime or early summer, there's lots of water in them, and the water acts as a lubricant that makes chainsawing a lot easier. This tree was dropped 2 days ago, and hopefully the bark is still fresh enough that it should peel off in a sheet. You probably shouldn't remove the bark until you're certain that you're going to actually mill the log. This is because of that whole moisture thing. Okay then, so why do we need to remove the bark at all? Well, bark is rough on a chain. Your chainsaw will dull much faster if it's cutting through bark. And with this jig, using a sharp chain is a must. In fact, I don't even sharpen my milling chains. At least not at first. I just buy a brand new one every time, because with this little saw, it's cost efficient. Remember, time is money, and a chain probably isn't worth an hour of your time. The chain doesn't get wasted anyhow. The saw that's attached to my mill stays there. It's dedicated to the purpose. I have a second saw that's identical to it, and so after I mill a few logs, the brand new chain just goes into my second saw and becomes general purpose. It lives a long life there where I hand sharpen it. Fresh bark is too slippery for the Spud, but it's safer on the knuckles. I think the tool is better when the bark is a bit dry. For removing fresh bark, a hatchet works just fine. But even better, in my opinion, is an axe that quickly gets fat towards the back end. Even this doesn't get wasted. Let me show you. Wherever there's a spot where I'm processing lots of firewood, I put it on the ground, and all of my running around turns it into mulch, and then later on it gets spread on the fruit trees. Now that our log is nice and naked looking, and for that reason I'm sorry about the exposure, that's a pun. It's bright white. I'll do the best that I can. But now it's time to use that second chainsaw I was talking about, the one with the dull chain. And what we're going to do is strike a couple of lines on the top and make a chainsaw cut that connects them together. That will give us our first flat spot. Logs are typically not round. They tend to be eccentric. And so where a log lays naturally on the ground will tend to tell you where its flat spot should be. So what we're doing today is making a 7.5 inch wide piece of stock that will then rip into individual thicknesses for boards. This process wastes a good bit of slab wood on the top and bottom, but this is just the small price that we pay in order to get a lot of wood really quickly. And the slab wood doesn't get wasted. You can make things out of it or just turn it into firewood. If your log is really tall, then you probably could squeeze another board out of this, but this mill system is not really designed for doing that. So you'll end up losing a lot of time playing around. And the process is all about efficiency and ease. Time is money, and ease of operation is time.
Try to be sure that this template is nice and level on both sides of the log before you mark it. Otherwise, you'll be trying to cut a helix. As for the chalk lines, it's okay if they come out crude on the first strike. It is an irregular surface. A line can always be restruck to sketch out a flatter plane. Just be sure to sight the log after each strike, and then adjust the line accordingly.
Now that there's a line there, there, and there, we can sort of visualize the slice that we want to take off. Don't overthink it. Don't worry if it isn't perfect. Nothing is critical at this point. You just want to get a flat spot on your log. The mill will take it from there. Halfway through. It's probably easier for me to tell you than to try to show you. It's not going so well for me because, I'm trying to pay attention to the tripod. But the general idea is this. You work all the way around the perimeter, making shallow passes each time. And you score on the end grain only so that you can use it as a gauge to tell that your bar is level as you go through. But for the most part, you want to make nice shallow cuts like this, and it's not easy. This is the hardest part of the whole process. It gets better, I promise. And again, don't sweat the details. I've messed it up pretty good, and that's alright. This is my first log of the season, and besides, as long as you're plus or minus a half inch, it'll be plenty fine. That said, this is not a particularly good one in my case. I probably should have used a sharper chain.
Shims are here being used not only to support the offcut, they also help to gently bend it up and out of the way. Doing this puts the uncut portion under tension,
which makes it much easier to cut.
Not one of my better ones, but also not one of my worst ones either. When you're doing this, you want to be mindful that you don't pitch the saw down into the log that you want. If anything, you can favor this way and make gouges on your cutoff because they don't matter. But here, we don't want any gouges. What we do want, if anything, if it's not a perfect plane, are these bits that stick up a little bit because we can buzz them off. Our next challenge is to get it up on top of something to make it easier to mill. It will also make it easier on the back to cut the second flat spot. And so to do that, we'll use a couple of 2x4s and a piece of chain for a lever. These 8-foot 2x4s have been connected at their top with a piece of plywood. And about 32 inches up from the ground, another 2x4 has been nailed and screwed to connect them together. From the bottom, this board is about 32 inches to its center, and along the bottom of it, its inside dimension is 21 inches. There are a couple of hooks here that go up into this 2x4, and a 4-foot length of chain easily snaps onto them. It's also super handy to have a couple of little logs laying around, preferably small, medium, and large. I know now that it has a flat spot, it doesn't exactly roll, but we'll do the best that we can. Notice where the chain is. Small log first. And for the other side, the medium-sized one is already there. And thankfully, it's easy to get the chain underneath on this side. This time, we'll replace the small one with the large one. Not bad, right? The process would be a lot smoother with a helper, but I'm going to use a prop rod. Notice that it's not on the center of my piece of firewood there, but that's a simple matter because with this lever, it's virtually weightless when it's up in the air. So it won't be a big deal for me to kind of bump it over into the middle. After a little bit of tinkering with the lever, I got it to sit really nicely right where I want it. This is a good workstation.
and the chalk lines have been struck, and I'm ready to go. A note on striking chalk lines. When you strike a chalk line, normally you'll pick it up and drop it perpendicular to the surface that you're striking the line on. But we want to make a plane like this, and this is an irregular surface. So you want to pick up the line and pull it like this so that it's in line with the plane. Notice in this case, right here, this log has a dip. And so when I strike the chalk line like this, there'll be a spot where there's no line. When that happens, just simply move closer to the empty spot and restrike again. Just connect the dots. You want a nice solid line so that you can make a straight chainsaw cut. At this point, it's well on its way. I have it shimmed on each end, and it's through cut up to about this point. And so just to recap, and bear with me because this is sort of confusing, the tough part is here in the middle because we can't stick our bar all the way through, and the chainsaw is more efficient when it cuts at an angle like this. So we use this second point on the other side to kind of feel what level is, and then we move in as we gain confidence towards the center. And then as it goes, the center part gets smaller and smaller, and eventually it separates. I think it's time to mill. First, here's a nice little tip for you. This squirt bottle originally was from some gear oil. Watch how quickly it'll fill one of these up. The clamp on the other side of this board determines how long of a log we can mill. Since this clamp doesn't reach yet, I still have to cut this down for length. I want every last bit.
This third saw is bigger than the other two, and it's only used for dropping rounds. There's no point in getting it out unless I'm cutting something that has at least a 10-inch diameter.
This is a piece of fishing line. And this is a piece of foam rubber. There's no need to dirty a brush here.
Every year, it's a struggle for me to try to relearn what I've already learned. This season, I learned once again to remember to keep my eye on the red zone. Thankfully, this was the only time that it happened, and after that, it was smooth sailing.
Alright, you've seen the other videos. It's perfect. We expect nothing less. This one is a viewer suggestion. Pretty good idea. It's a depth set so that I don't have to measure anything. I'll show you. If you set the guide rail using this side of it, you'll automatically produce 1-inch boards. But today, I'm going to be using the other side of it to produce 1.5-inch boards.
Don't overwork your saw. There's plenty of other stuff to be working on here, so try to mix up tasks so that your chainsaw stays cool. After you drop a board, let it run for a few seconds and then kill it, so that it can rest for a few minutes while you set up for the next cut. And keep your saw in the shade.
First cut was nice. Second cut had a screwy part in the middle. And third cut is flawless. The secret is to keep moving. Move quickly. And don't try to put your own spin on things. Let the jig float. Still dropping perfect boards. Every cut has been nice, except for that second cut. It had some problems, but all the others were pretty much perfect. It's kind of a strange thing that maple in the center is not so white. It has a light brown color. The heartwood is a brownish, and it's the exterior wood that you know as white maple. So a common question that I get is, what do you do when you're running out of log and there's no place to put your guide rail? On this one, there's still enough left to do one more 1-inch board. But after that, I have a trick, and so it will let you keep milling the whole way down until there's nothing left. Stay tuned.
And speaking of tricks, there is a technique that will help you use this jig effectively. The fastest way that you can screw up one of these boards is if you stop and cut deep into it. Your every chainsaw instinct will tell you to plunge in deep and make progress, but really the trick is to keep it moving. The more shallow passes you make, the better. If you feel it start to give any resistance at all as you cut, it's likely that you're digging into the side of one of your boards. Don't double down. If you feel it grab like this, pretend like it didn't happen. Just keep moving. Once a pass starts to gouge into the side, it will only get worse if you keep going with it. Come back on the next pass and pass it right over like a little wrinkle, and it will be gone forever, like it didn't happen.
So far, I've dropped away 5 boards from the left of this log. Also the slab, but I got 5 usable boards. And so I have a straight edge there. But on this edge, it's still natural. So what I want to do
is remove the natural edge.
And then the remaining board that's nice and thick, I'll cut it in half. But in order to pull this off, I'll have to have a place for my guide rail. And that will be over here. What's going to hold one end of my guide rail up? One of the boards that I just cut. One more thing. Since I'm cutting the other side of this log, now I have to flip around my guide rail. Also optional is this pad of plywood, which will connect the 2 parts together. This backside is a bit out of level, so I'm adding a total of 5 pounds just to help keep it on the guide rail. And now that our log finally has its 4 flat sides, we could further process it by knocking it on its side and then ripping it into 2x4 like material. But instead, I'm going to use this board as sort of an outrigger and put a space between the two, move it over here, and still clamp it here and here in order to make one final cut on this. I think you get the idea. Alright, we'll do one more. It's just too fun to stop. And our final cut leaves us with an 1.5" board and a 7/8 inch board. This total was 2 5/8. That's as small a log as we can mill. And with that, I quit. Future potential improvements, I would love a handle right here. Something to grab to move this whole thing. And one other thing, at the very tail end of the cut, right where the board drops off, you can see there's a little bit of red in my window here, but this window gets filled with sawdust. I would really like to make some kind of stopping mechanism that only lets it go so far. But I don't want that mechanism to interfere with putting the jig on and off the board. So if you have any ideas, you know where to put them. And so you can see, by taking baby steps, a little piece of a time, you can start with a problem that feels insurmountable and end up with, well, refined product. And so it is that mankind has taken the substance of his natural resources and slowly converted them into a usable lifestyle. And for that reason, we should all do the best to conserve what remains.